Welcome to another Christ University video. This is part 2 of the revelation of the devil that tempted Jesus. And in this video, what I want to share is in light of history and in light of also scripture, what the nature of the devil has always been. So I'm gonna use a quick example, and it's like these lenses or glasses, they represent a mindset, and I'm gonna share it in kind of the mindset that we have on the West of how the world is based on how we were educated, whether it's our secular education, but also the spiritual education. So based on that, we have a mindset, an understanding, and the way we perceive and see the whole world, and also history. Therefore, in this mindset, we see that the nature of evil, based on biblical stories, it was because a fallen angel rebelled against God and took a third of the angels from heaven, and he has been the creator of evil, the deceiver, liar, the destroyer, and the ruler of the spiritual realms of the world and history. That is this mindset. And it's interesting and important to know that one, the Jews, the Hebrews, the Israelite, they don't have that mindset that a lot of the Westerner have, mainly on fundamental traditions, faith-based belief, and dogmatic traditions. So the Hebrews and the Jews and the Israelite, they see the reality of evil, the reality of Satan, for what the word Satan means. And the word Satan means adversary, means opponent. And it's very interesting to know that the first mention of the word Satan in the Bible is not with the serpent in the garden, and the story of Adam and Eve and the fall of man is not there. The very first mention of the word Satan in the Bible is in the story of Balaam in Numbers chapter 22, verse 22, where the story says that the donkey spoke. And the reason why the donkey spoke is because an agent of God, Malak, an angel of the Lord, according to the text, stood as a Satan, stood in front of the donkey as an opponent, as an adversary, not to let the donkey continue its walk. So that is the very first mention. I want to share another example, because in the Old Testament, the word Satan, it was only mentioned quite like around 5 times. And this other example is extremely important, but at the same time sensible, because of what I'm going to say, and is this, that even God himself, according to 2 Samuel chapter 24 verse 1 and 1 Chronicles chapter 21 verse 1, God himself was a Satan to David. And we will see that, and let's see that, so you can read in the Bible. And we can read in 2 Samuel chapter 24, verse 1. And it says, David takes a census. Once again, the anger of the Lord burned against Israel and caused David to harm them by taking a census. Now, that is Samuel 24 once again, the anger of the Lord caused David to count the Israelite. Now we're going to go to 1 Chronicle chapter 21. The same story, David takes the census. Now, 21:1 says, Satan rose up against Israel and caused David to take a census of the people of Israel. So you see, and one story says God, Yahweh, Jehovah, the Hebrew people's God, the God of the nation of Israel, according to Samuel 24 verse 1, was the one who made David to count the Israelite. He caused David. But now the same story told in 1 Chronicles chapter 21 verse 1 says Satan. It's not contradicting, but what it's saying is letting us know that God was an adversary to David, was an opponent, was a Satan that caused David to count the people. It's also extremely interesting to know that neither the book of Isaiah, chapter 14, nor the book of Ezekiel, chapter 28, talk about a fallen angel, Lucifer, the bright morning star, that fell from heaven. Oh, you cherubim, that you were in Eden. When you read the context of Isaiah 14, read chapter 12, read chapter 13, read chapter 15, and you will see that it's clearly talking a story about the king of Tyre. And it's like a mockery. And we have to understand this type of poetic language used from east to west in all these stories, because they're telling, there's the stories, they're telling stories. And we need to understand with a grown-up mindset, leave the stories that we have always throughout life have heard and see them in a new light, in a new understanding. The same with Ezekiel chapter 28. It's talking about the king of Babylon. It's not talking about no fallen angel. So then when people spiritualize these texts, how come they don't spiritualize then the following texts or everything? So this is a simple way to see that is how easy it could be a text to be taken out of context. Because the people that, according to history, were inspired to write these 39 books from the Old Testament, these prophecies, they don't have the same conceptualization of the Western, more New Testament mindset that the Christian or religion and their tradition have of the same word, Satan. How come? If we're talking about one essence, one spirit, one reality, one God, one universe, then it should always be the same. So I see throughout history that if we decide to take the time and to put new lenses, meaning a new mindset, meaning take the time to investigate, to research, to relearn, to study a little bit more, this, in the reality of that we're talking about spiritual teachings and meanings based on the reality of God, based on the reality of a universal Father to all humanity. So therefore, we gotta see throughout history what this concept have always meant. And like I said, to the Jews and the Israelite, it doesn't mean the same way that to the Christians mean. Neither to the, let's say, the Hindu, or let's say Japanese, Chinese, or let's say the people from the East, they don't have the same concept of evil, of a Satan or a devil, a being out there, that some of the Westerners have. And to me, it's very interesting, because when we see the teachings of Jesus in light of history throughout the gospel, it demonstrates the mindset of the East. The understanding of these words, the origins of evil, is always and has always been within the human self. So for example, in the East, they know that such beings don't exist, but they do know that injustice exists, that unrighteousness exists, and that is evil. That evil deeds are done every day, but where do they always for thousands and thousands of years have come from? And they come from within the nature of human beings. That the way that human beings manage their desires, their emotions, their thinking, their ideas, their thoughts, and that process gives birth to actions. And then when people, they unite, they congregate, or they cooperate with other people with like-mindedness, with the same mindset, then they start creating systems, forces, corporations, and they accomplish many acts that they show unrighteousness. And unrighteousness is away from righteousness. Good is the absence of evil. So the same way, Christ, when we in all these, we're seeing the revelation of Christ within us. So therefore, it's kind of saying the same. If we realize the Christ understanding within us, or we have and develop the Christ mindset within us, then we also could see what is Antichrist. Is it going to be a figure, a person, a being out there that someday will come? Or has always been among us and even within us? And that is the reality the scripture is telling us. The reality, or that is the revelation of the devil. And that is why we see in some of the text, for example, some of the texts like when Jesus rebuked Peter. Jesus told Peter, Satan, apart from me. And that is in Matthew chapter 16, verse, I believe, 23. Jesus told Peter, Satan. Why? Because he's telling his nature language in Aramaic, he's telling him a natural word that means don't be an opponent, Peter. Because Peter was telling, hey, what do you mean that you gotta die and all that? Peter was still looking forward to a physical kingdom. He was still looking to a ruler Messiah type of Moses, a type of David, a ruler king like Solomon, that it was going to conquer the forces of evil, the Roman Empire. And Jesus was presenting, was alive and kicking with a new kingdom, a new reality, a spiritual reality in the greatest temple that has always existed, the temple called self, the temple of God, the self, our life, our oneness. And that Peter, according to the story, was not seeing it completely yet. So that's why Jesus rebuked him. And then further, Jesus said, whomever wants to follow me must deny themselves. Deny themselves from what? From their ego or egocentric mindset, lifestyle, desires. If you want to follow me, you don't have to. But if you want to live this oneness, if you want to realize this unity with God and with all, then you must die to yourself. So that is pretty much, in a short way, kind of the way that we could see and we need to see in Scripture the reality of evil, the devil, or Satan, in the many passages or texts that appears. I think a great definition of it also, we can read it in the book of Ephesians chapter 2. Let me go over there. In the book of Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2, Paul talks about, and I think gives a very simple and clear definition of what the devil is. And therefore you see, according to the stories throughout the New Testament, why some people follow Jesus and change, and what was the state, and what was the actions, and what was the mindset, why Jesus called people hypocrite, why they were dead in sin, and what was the reality of those who were alive in the Spirit of Christ, or in the revelation of the understanding of Jesus the Christ. You see, so what was the spirit? What was the mindset? What was how these people live? And I think Paul gives us a great definition. So let us read real quick here. And it's Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2 says, you used to live in sin, just like the rest of the world, obeying the devil, the commander of the powers in the unseen world. He is the spirit at work in the hearts of those who refuse to obey God. That is the devil. That is the reality that is not outside anyone, that it has always been within everyone. And that's why the spiritual teachings to lead us to see the world from a selfish way into a universal way. We are family. We are the sons and daughters of God. These are my brothers and sisters. They're not different, from different countries, Chinese, Mexican, Jewish, Afro. We're all in all. And that requires a new mindset, a new vision. The spiritual sight of God within the self, the nature of Christ. So I want to finish here. It's always, it's always a pleasure to share, and I'm looking forward to continue this series of the teachings of Jesus in light of history. And that is the purpose of Christ University, to share the gospel of Christ in light of history. So the same that Jesus as a man accomplished, it is the same as what he taught his disciples and humanity in history, that as he did, so all can do, to become a Christ, someone with the sight, the mind, the heart of God in this world. Namaste, shalom, blessing to all. We'll see you in the next Christ University video.